what's up, Tar? Hopefully the that intro worked out better than last time.
We're not gazing off into the sunset on this one.
So I bought a new computer. Hopefully everyone out there can tell the difference. Maybe it runs much smoother. Tyler said he could. So I'm Kevin from Guys on the Ground in collaboration with Counterculture Inc.
And I'm Tyler, Tyler _CC on Instagram, but also in collaboration with Counterculture Inc.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the first article that you want to discuss.
Okay. The first thing I'm going to say real quick, Kevin, before we get to that, is if there was any salty NCOs about what I said about checking the block with promotions in the military, get over it. If you were butthurt about that, because I look like it got some traction. I'm not saying all of you guys are like that, but you're in denial and need to seek professional help if you don't believe there is a check the block system with United States Army or just promotional stuff in the military. So that's my spiel real quick on that.
100% is. There absolutely is. Go do your SSTs. Actually, I'm not sure those are a thing anymore.
Right. I remember real quick, Kevin, I remember sitting on staff duty, and I didn't get to become an NCO before I got out, but I was on the track too. I remember sitting on staff duty and just bullshitting through SSD1, writing the notes on the stuff to take it. And so that first article Kevin's referencing, because I'm curious, Kevin, what your take is. You know, you're in the service, you're an NCO, you're a leader, and maybe I'll get some flack for this from the conservative veteran community, but this is just kind of my take on it. So, for those of you that are familiar with the news or have been following the news here recently, that whole Signal thing with Hegseth, and then the second one came out, and obviously there has to be an investigation, but like at least for me, on the preliminary stuff, just seeing that, if we're gonna be fair, like, and again, I may get some flack for this, but like, I don't know, I think it's within reason to tell the dude to step down, because from this perspective, Kevin, you're an NCO, correct?
Yes, I'm a Master Sergeant E8.
Okay, perfect. You're the perfect person to pick a brain here for this. So for y'all non-police folks, and Kevin can attest to this, so for y'all non-police, for you police folks that are watching that aren't military, for anyone that's watching that's not military, if Kevin would have a private come to him and say, "Hey, Big Sarge, I hooked up to the red computer and did XYZ, and I texted information from a TS computer or whatever." Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. Again, maybe you would have a different way of going about this. He's probably going to get demoted. You're probably going to want to punch him in the face because you're the NCO that's got to go report to someone that he did that. And depending on what you did, they may put you in the brig. I mean, I think there was an article, and I pulled it up, but I don't have access to my phone. Maybe you'll be able to find it, Kevin. There was a Navy sailor, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, maybe more, that took pictures because he was proud of his job. Took pictures in front of the engines for the sub, which I believe are considered secret. That would be like jumping in a 160th cockpit and just taking pictures of everything. You can't do that. And he ended up doing like extensive jail time for that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just for a picture like that in a ship in front of some engines. And
right. And that was the big argument. I don't like to get into politics because, you know, I don't trust really either side. It's kind of like choosing the lesser of the evil of the two. But like, that's what I think about with this. And they're saying the first Signal chat was true. Like, and
I believe it was true. He wasn't denying it. You know what I mean? He was just kind of like scooting around the issue. I have a good one for this too. So when I was in Afghanistan back in 2011 or so, before me, President Obama was going to visit the troops. Well, some first sergeant got on his Nipper account and blasted out on his Nipper, "Hey, President Obama's coming in 2 weeks on this date. Make sure all your barracks are squared away." Like, well-intentioned. Right.
That's a big you have like the VIP. Right. You have the VIP of VIPs coming. Like, so my question, did anything end up happening to the guy? Like, what?
God, this was a long time ago. I'm sure he got his pee-pee smacked. I think that was it.
Right.
But
Right. Well, when you
but
get
like,
to that, when you get to that rank, it's
enlisted
hard.
an enlisted first sergeant got President Obama's schedule changed because of a nipper email that he had sent. That's
Oh
awesome.
boy, I wouldn't even want to be the sergeant major that's got to go see his commander to say his next subordinate under him went and did that. But
Right.
like, I don't know how you feel, Kevin, but me personally, if the first signal thing comes out and the second one does, I just like with the military, with it being so like standard driven, like I think from what's the phrase, Kevin, you hear all the time with like commissioned officers if they get like relieved of duty? It's didn't have faith in their ability to command. You know what phrase I'm talking about? You hear that with like
the unbecoming standards of becoming of an officer.
Yeah, like they just let go an admiral and they had said they lost faith in his ability to something like lead or something like that. And like the dynamic with the Hegseth thing, and again, I may get flack from this from the conservative folks. I'm not up for either side, but like I just don't know then the person who's supposed to run the military then if you have a private that does something like that, how can you then give the guy UCMJ? Like,
so like what exactly did Hegseth do? Because I'm trying to read this article and listening at the same time.
So what they're claiming is, and again, has to be substantiated, but the first claim I believe was substantiated, and he didn't deny it. So in the second claim here, Kevin, they're saying he actually then had another signal chat that had his wife, lawyer, and two other people. And you're probably going to be familiar with this term I'm about to say. For you folks that weren't in the service, there's this term with security clearances where they call it getting read on. Basically, like what your security clearance is, kind of what you need to know, your operating space with what your security clearance is. And maybe I said that wrong, maybe I said it right, but that's kind of I don't know, my explanation of it. And none of those people are read on for strategic military strikes.
Sure,
your wife who's making roast beef in a crock pot doesn't need to know when Osama bin Jihad's about to get blown up by a hellfire. Like he's like she doesn't need to know while she's making her crock pot meal, like when at 9 o'clock that person's going to be vaporized from some missile or something like that. I don't know what was put in there, but the first claim was substantiated, and I just I know I really like to not advocate for people to lose their job, but again, like you're an NCO, Kevin, like that really then that would be like to me, and I don't know, maybe you can give an example of what you think, but like if you're a sergeant major, right, and you're always late, or even you in your position, let's say you're late to formation every day, late. If I'm your boss, which Hegseth's boss would be Trump, if I'm your boss, let's say I'm your sergeant major, Kevin, and you're late every day, and then let's say you have a private that shows up late or fucked up to formation, and then you come to me with, hey, I have this counseling statement, this is what I'm recommending, even though, I mean, you wouldn't formally do that, you'd go to your first sergeant, or if you're the first sergeant in that situation, but then I know you're always late. Like that would be kind of like conflicting to me. Like you are like, how are you going to then punish the person for what you're doing? And you obviously are very high up being an NCO. Like I just like what I guess here. So put you on the spot, Kevin. Let's say you had a staff sergeant, not to, I hope this isn't like a conflicting answer for you. I'm not even saying in your unit. Let's say you were in just some other unit. Let's say you had a staff sergeant come to you, Kevin, who exact same situation, late all the time, uniform fucked up, like just bag of shit. And then he has a private that starts doing the same thing and then comes to you and wants to write him up, give him counseling statements for everything under the sun. But the guy is doing the same thing. Like I would have an issue with punishing the guy, because if you're doing the same thing, like how do you then, you know what I mean?
I feel like your solution. Something like this has already happened to me. I was a platoon sergeant, E7. I had a squad leader who wasn't the best. He did the same thing. Showed up late. Didn't have a good attitude. I fired him. I put an E5 in charge of him. Too easy. Like, you don't want to do the job, somebody else will. No problem. Just
Right.
I get you're an E6. This E5 is going to lead you, whether you look at it or not. I don't care. I'm in charge of this platoon. Well, the PL technically is, but we know who's really in charge.
Yeah, right.
right. So before he had a chance for a private to mess up, and I had a
Oh God, platoon leaders. Oh boy.
Yeah, I got stories. But
that's a whole show by itself.
100%. That could be 100%. But no, I had an E6 father, like super nice guy. Personally, I liked him, not a bad dude, but he just bad attitude, showed up late. So I fired him. Eventually he got the job back and he got a better attitude. And I mean, it comes down to having good relationships with your people. But that was my solution to the problem. Right, wrong, and different, whatever, because now there's an E5 who's doing more than what he should, and there's an E6 doing less than what he should. But that was how I solved that dynamic.
Like, and like, I'll quick story, like, where I say, like, and again, I hate to call for people to lose their job, but I'll share a story of when I was in the 160 that something happened, not similar to this, but I guess you want to call it close. We had a guy, we had a nickname for him. If one of my buddies is watching this, he's going to laugh. We used to call, his name was Anderson, and we would call him Special A. He would just do, I really don't even know how to describe it to you, Kevin. He was unique. I'll put it to you that way. Well, the one day we're in our office, in our detachment office, and he comes in with an iPhone cord, plugs it into the high side computer, and plugs his phone into the high side computer from the USB to the right. So he got in a bunch of trouble for that, because now that computer might be compromised. But here's like the dynamic. Like, so I guess here's my question for you, Kevin, because I personally think if you have the other signal thing come out at that point, I mean, I would say Hegseth in some regards is compromised as a leader, because again, my exact example, Private Anderson in 160 Azure plugs in, and I might get flack from my unit for saying that, but it's the story, plugs his phone into the high side, and he gets in a bunch of trouble. Well, if you have your boss of all of the military texting is way more, I don't even know what the word, way more like, oh, I don't know what the word would be, just a lot more significant, Kevin, I guess, versus, what Mr. Anderson did in my unit when I was there was stupid. There wasn't really anything that could have come of it. I mean, the phone got taken and stuff like that. But like, how then, as a military, like I just feel like that puts you in such a predicament then, because my argument would be, if I was a private and I did something like that, I'm going to say, well, the person that all the officers answer to did something just like that. How do you then, like, as a I don't know, like,
how do you hold accountability? No, it's like, I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
You know what bothers me in the military is that I feel like the guys who are lower rank, when they get in trouble, they get
the end of the fucking world.
They get in trouble worse. And then when it's time for them to come to get an award, their awards suck compared to what, like, when I was in Afghanistan, if you were an E7 and above and you didn't screw anything up, you got a Bronze Star Service Medal.
Yep, they hand them out.
I got an ARCOM. That is a joke, because I was an E5 at the time. So I do the same, I do the same job, but we were in the same area. We we're doing the same thing, and yet you're going to get, because you're a higher rank, you're going to get, and it's like, just because you're a higher rank, you're going to get a higher medal than a guy who is less than a rank because you did your job. It's unfair. I met a guy one time. He was in 25th ID, and he was telling me a story. Me and him were in the Philippines together, and he was telling me a story about how he had left his base. He was with a buddy, and he was a medic, and always carried his medic bag in his truck. Well, he's going back to post, and there's a motorcycle accident, and this guy on his motorcycle is laid out pretty bad, and he's able to recognize he's a soldier, which gives him more permissions to do more medical stuff on this guy. And unfortunately, the motorcyclist didn't end up making it, but I think he said he was an E3 or E4 at the time. So you have a guy who stays ready with his med kit in his back, has the confidence to go up to a motorcyclist who's hurt and the competence to go up and treat him. You know what they gave him? Guess, Tyler. Guess what they gave him?
An AAM?
No, a coin. They gave him a coin. I couldn't believe it. If an officer, senior NCO had done something like that, it would be, at least AAM, ARCOM. No, they gave him a coin.
Really?
I was in shock and disbelief. Like, this dude did something heroic. He had the competence and confidence to go treat someone that he knew how to do, and he was prepared to do it. And he got a coin. Blew my mind.
Really?
Blew my mind. Yeah, cool dude, great dude.
See that's something like I laugh, Kevin, when I see on the news when they talk about like retention numbers and stuff like that, and like I'm sure maybe you'll agree. Like, I was known as the guy, and I used to laugh sometimes when my NCOs would see it, but like if we would have sensing sessions sometimes, I would let it fly.
Which you should.
And like I laugh when I see on the news when they reference like retention numbers, but like that's a perfect example. Like, I don't know how many people are currently watching, but if any of you guys are prior service that are watching or still in, share what your thoughts are as far as the award stuff goes. But I think some of it is like, I don't know, some of it I think, Kevin, is mix of it. I don't believe you're this way, but lazy NCOs and just I don't know. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't.
No,
I think
it absolutely shouldn't be that way. In fact,
I think the Army loses good soldiers to stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. They lose a lot of good soldiers to a lot of things. I think the Army loses a lot of good soldiers just because guys get stuck in their careers. There's people who get slots for schools who shouldn't get them. The Army's been great to me, though. I really can't complain. The Guard's been fantastic. I've got
Kevin, quick question so I don't forget. What is, again, your active law enforcement? What is, and again, I don't know enough about the standards as far as like police and, awards and stuff like that. What is that like there? Is there like some set national award thing for police like the military? And like, is it similar as far as process goes? Like, your supervisor got to write you up for one, the chief kind of approves it, or like, is it more? Obviously, there still is awards in police work, I would think.
Sure, there is. And so I work for a smaller department. Like, we maybe have like 30, 33 total people. So there isn't.
Oh, that would be big here where I live.
Right. So we have an award system, and if you save a life, you get to wear like a badge, like a ribbon on a uniform. And delivering a baby, you also get to wear a ribbon on our uniform as well. But there aren't many set awards, and that's something I think they're working on as well, because I think awards are important done correctly.
Oh, 100%.
Napoleon said that if he had unlimited ribbon, he could conquer the world, because all guys want to do is wear different badges, tabs, and ribbons that other guys don't have.
No, Kevin, you're not to sound like a nerd, but when I got back from airborne school, I couldn't. And again, I will get clowned by guys like Brent and shit like that. But when I got done with airborne school and I got my wings, and then I got back to Fort Lewis and I got them sewn on my uniform, I did think I was Joe. Like, I was like, yeah, I got these. Like, because there wasn't at Fort Lewis, it was just us and group and like a random LURS unit from North Fort that were the only folks that were airborne. So so you are right there with the badges thing. Like, there is that pride there with them, being on your top part of your shoulder, chest area.
And if used correctly, you can really motivate people to do good things. Are you air assault qualified as well?
No. So what sucks is I got my ankle broken in airborne school, but I still finished. Dumbest thing I ever decided to do. I was like, for sure it was broken. It was like my second or third jump, and it was the weirdest bruising I've ever seen in my life. I get to why I'm not air assault qualified. And I was actually supposed to go to air assault. They had me already slotted for the school on our calendar when I came back. So I was done with airborne school. It was actually, I got done with SEER school, worst school ever. Greatest school ever, but worse at the same time. But I have some stories for that's one of the most unique schools I've ever been through. But I got done with airborne school, ankle was messed up, finished airborne school, and when I came back, I went through, had to have surgery, and then basically with, I deployed twice, and just especially with, again, special operations, like the just pace at what they go at for whether it's deployments, TDY trips, trainings. Like I was always gone. I was always TDY somewhere or here or there. I probably spent almost as much time away, like from base than I would, so, and I can, like that one video Brent has where he was talking about, kids stuff, about not missing stuff. I give guys like him props, especially with, the organization he went and was a part of. Like that's hard, man. Like I don't know
how you do families with that. I mean, it's difficult. Even in the Guard, when you got to go on a year-long deployment, or hey, randomly, like you're going to Cleveland for the riots, like you're going to be gone. I don't know how long. When I was married at the time, I had to tell her like, hey, I'm just leaving. I don't know when I'll be back, or hopefully things get better. It sucks. At the end of the day. Law enforcement, military, and family sucks. It's
100%. Like I remember, I forget when it was, the first or second time I went, like with the 160th, and the people we work with, we can't share because our footprint's supposed to be small. I can't go sharing where I'm at. So then when I'm calling people, like, I wasn't married at the time, but my family nonetheless kind of still was a little bit unnerving. Like, I'm calling from a sat phone, and hey, I'm all right, kind of thing. And especially you have kids, correct, Kevin?
Yeah, 3 girls, girl dad.
Yeah, and I can't imagine, a situation like yours. You want to give reassurance to your kids before you leave, because obviously you're their dad. You only have one mom, one dad, so I can't really imagine that dynamic as far as the worry goes.
Yeah, it was tough, man. So the only deployment I did while I had them was to the Philippines, and that was not a combat deployment. It was very much a diplomatic combat advisor mission, which was really cool. And I had a great time and learned a lot. And you learn not to fuck with the Filipinos in the jungle. Those dudes will mess you up. Awesome guys, great guys to work with. But I was thinking, like, I couldn't imagine deploying on a combat deployment, really not knowing if I'm going to come home or not. Well, I have three kids. You know what I mean? When I was 21, like, I didn't give a shit. Like, I'm ready to go. Let's go fuck guys up.
Send me.
Absolutely, send me. But like, just like when I was leaving for the Philippines, it was like, I know within 99% certainty I'm coming back home. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried. I couldn't imagine having to be like, I'm going to Afghanistan to like the Korengal Valley, and I don't know if I'm going home to see my kids. I can't even fathom that mindset. You know what I mean? Like, God bless those guys. Like, seriously.
Well, like real quick, Kevin, I always find this ironic, and I don't know if you agree with me here on this or not, but I feel like you're going to. What I always find so funny with the politicians is they're like, we don't have troops in war and this, that, and the third. I'm thinking, motherfucker, I wanted to go over there when I was in. Like, you guys are like, we don't have anybody in combat. And I was like, when I got to my unit, I wanted to go. Like, let me go. Like, tax-free. Let's say you re-enlist over there. Like, I wanted to go. You want the
experience. You want as a young man, you want the experience. You want to test yourself as a young man when you go to combat.
Exactly. Right.
And like I was like 20. I was 20 years old. I got asked if I wanted to go on a mission. I would spend a few months in Hungary training with those guys, and then take them over to Afghanistan with us. And you would do missions with the Afghan army. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I don't want to stay in Ohio. Ohio sucks.
Right.
Let's go do something. I want to go kill bad guys. It's 2008. September 11th happened a few years ago. I was in Munch school. I want to go fucking kill bad guys.
So that's something I always laugh when I watched this last presidential debate, and they were going back and forth about troops in combat, and I'm thinking, we actually like going. So like, what? Like, I don't know if you're out of touch with the service. You sound like you're a general visiting your troops you're commanding, who has no idea what's going on. Like, that's not how it is.
I think Kamala Harris was trying to say that in the debate to like prop up Joe Biden, that there were no troops in combat at the time. I might be thinking about that. I don't know, but
you know as well as I do, Kevin, that the special operations community is everywhere. You just don't know about it. So that
100%.
phrase there. I know that's not true with, and Brent obviously knows this as well. With my unit and those organizations, we're there. You just have no idea.
Nor should you.
Right.
All right. You want to switch gears a little bit here?
Yeah.
All right. So something I wanted to bring up, and I want your opinion on. Let me see if I can share screen here. I'm getting better at this, a little bit at a time.
We'll have to find that article, Kevin, about that Navy sailor, because I think that correlates so totally similar to the Hegseth thing. That guy, I think he did 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for a photograph.
All right. So here's Ohio, this new Ohio House bill. And I kind of want your opinion on this. So,
okay,
as a police officer, I cannot be evaluated based on the amount of tickets I write or arrests that I make. And I think this is really debatable, and I see both sides of this. I'm kind of curious on your thoughts.
Okay, so I have a few initial questions for you with this. So, from my understanding with police work, and again, it's brief compared to your experience, they consider, and this is something I heard from a district attorney out here in Pennsylvania, quotas, in his eyes, would be unconstitutional.
Okay.
But where I look at the quotas thing, as again, I'm going to correlate this back to the military, because I know before I got out of the Army, I was on path to become an NCO. So like I had really good NCOs in my unit who were always preaching, and I'm getting to my point here in a second, always trying to, get us ready for that next, this is what it's going to be like, sharing information from where they're at. And you're probably familiar with this phrase, Kevin. When you become an NCO, you have NCO ER bullets. And I don't know if that's changed from when I was into you, and you have to put your accomplishments in, and you get, what's that called, Kevin? You get a, meet standard or
meet standard, exceed standard, far exceed standard. Yeah.
Right. So how I look at that is I think that being in place, and again, this is someone who's ignorant in terms of police stuff because I didn't do it for very long, like you did. I think you kind of, whoever's pushing that forward may set a dangerous standard, because then how are we evaluating someone's job performance? So that's kind of one of them things, playing devil's advocate. Like, do you want active people being active in terms of doing police stuff? Or do you want people to just sit in their car and pull their phone out when they're on night shift and watch Netflix?
Absolutely. Right. It's a conundrum. So I think
it's a paradox too. I would consider it one.
Right. So if you're in a bigger city, some of my friends who work in bigger cities, such as Cleveland, they're busy. They're not pulling people over. I mean, if they have their own traffic unit, you know what I mean? So it really doesn't apply to them. They're doing their job anyway. They don't necessarily have to be proactive to get into stuff. And when you work for smaller departments, it's a little more difficult. Like if you don't be proactive in some of the smaller departments, you're going to sit on your phone watching Netflix, texting your buddies, whatever, not do your job. So maybe, dare I say, quota or some kind of standard to how many people you stop, rate tickets to, isn't a bad idea, because if you're not doing that, you're giving guys permission to do nothing. As a police officer, I'm not someone who does nothing. I probably get myself into too much trouble to where I'm going out. I shouldn't say trouble, but I go out and I pull people over. I try and make arrests. And when you do
you're one of the cops, Kevin, that I forget what phrase Tyler uses, but
I am not going to say goon. I will not call myself a goon.
I know. Well, no. I've noticed on the Anti-Hero podcast, Tyler, if you're watching, I'm not trying to bust your balls, but when they get on this topic, he hammers down on this. It's basically, Kevin, in so many words, there's guys that want to be cops essentially, and then there's guys that just want to sit in their car and watch Netflix. And he says it in a different manner, but it's, he's big on people wanting to do police work, and the precedent, Kevin, I guess, that whoever's trying to push that in Ohio is setting will like, and again, correct me, Kevin, if I'm saying anything incorrectly, like, and again, I'm going to resort a lot of my thinking back to the military. Like, you could stop someone that's carrying a person in their trunk. You could, so I understand maybe the dynamic, Kevin, of like, they just don't want people being stopped. But then I also think of this, there's this one conservative guy I'd watched on YouTube, and he brought up a good point in terms of policing. And he said certain, I guess you want to say communities or this or that, they look at policing as, oh, we're not trying to get caught, versus another community looks at it as it's there for public safety. So then I look at it from this perspective, thinking of those two arguments. If you're not doing something you're not supposed to, why do you care about that? Because you can't just pull people over and give them a ticket for something if they're not doing anything wrong. Like, that doesn't, like if you're not, again, that's the first thing I think of. If you have nothing.
One of your arguments is, why should I care that police are pulling people over if I'm not doing anything wrong?
Right. For the people that would be that are pushing that forward, if you're not doing anything wrong, like, like what's the issue? Like, you get stopped for a reason. You can't just go, hey, it's 2:00 at night, you're just driving down the street, I'm just going to stop you. You obviously, or Kevin, are actively in law enforcement. You're going to have someone that's going to have a big deal with that. And I also go back to, again, like, I know here in Pennsylvania, I don't know if this is similar for you and Ohio, Kevin, but like here in PA, you have to have a body cam on. So if someone just stops you to stop you, that'll be your vindication there. They're going to say, oh, hey, like, nothing came of this. And you can't, again, you're a cop, correct me if I'm wrong, can't just stop someone just to stop someone. It's got to be some articulable,
reasonable articulable suspicion or child
violation
to stop someone.
Right.
You can't just stop someone.
So here, actually, that's interesting you brought this up. So actually here in Pennsylvania, they actually, and some people don't know this, so municipal cops, and I don't necessarily understand it, municipal cops are not allowed to use radar. And what the local municipality, it's interesting. State police can, which I think that's wrong. I don't think there should be a separation. I don't think separation of powers is the right phrase.
A monkey could run radar and pull people over. I'm serious. You could train a monkey to sit there and push a button, see what cars go in that speed, and pull people over.
Well, and I think in some regards, and I'm not getting away from your Ohio thing here, Kevin, but basically what I'm getting at is a lot of the municipalities, why that's a thing, argue that municipal police are going to abuse it. Well, if you have one person that can do it, what's the difference between the rest of those departments? Because out here in PA, what the municipal cops have to do for speed is they use a system called VASCAR, and it's basically time and distance traveled. And that's how fast you're going. So you go cross one white line, you hit the other, they flip a thing.
Okay.
And that gives you your speed. So here in PA, there's, I guess, something similar. But I guess, again, my argument to that would be, again, if you're not doing anything that you're not supposed to be doing. Now, I could see if you had, I guess, I've been trying to think of that argument that doesn't apply. I just, again.
All right, so let me ask you this. If you had to pick one, I want my police officers in my community to have quotas for tickets and arrests versus I don't want my police officers in my community to have a quota for ticket arrests. Which one would you choose?
I would say, that's a good question there.
It's tough, man. It's tough. I know.
It's tough. But again, Kevin, where I'm ultimately good, I don't have an issue with the quota dynamic, because ultimately what I look at it this way too is it's taxpayer funded. So taxpayers need to be making sure that money, the resource that they're paying for is being adequately utilized. So,
okay, sure. That's a good argument.
And I also look at it from this perspective, because I know when I was in the police academy, we had a district attorney teaching us criminal law, and I guess there's studies that show, more active policing, whether it be more lights in certain areas, et cetera, cuts down on crime. So I look at it from that perspective, and I also just apply common sense. If you're not doing something wrong, then like there shouldn't be an issue. And I don't know if you've seen that article, Kevin, I sent you that sort of relates to this argument in terms of just being reasonable. There was a guy that got arrested for protesting about Jesus out in Seattle. I say screenshot. I don't think I sent a link, but I get people's arguments for quotas. People may say, "Oh, well, they're just going to be pulling everyone over." But again, Kevin, I think you agree with me. Can't just pull someone over if they're not doing something wrong. I think in society we just continue to just get away from like the accountability dynamic as far as like people living in like real life. Like, because there was that period in the military where like you drill sergeants couldn't even curse at recruits. Like, you're being trained to be a war fighter.
That's
so
insane to me.
yeah, like kind of what I'm getting at is just the common sense dynamic. Like, you're being trained to be a war fighter, but yet you can't handle some cursing. And then I go back to, again, you apply common sense to the quotas thing. If you're not doing something wrong, then you shouldn't have to worry about it. And at the same time, then taxpayers know, hey, that money is being, is being utilized.
Right.
And again, there's other things that could be pulled off the street. Like I think it was
there's there's this guy in my community, and I don't want to give a shout out to this guy if I have permission to, but there's this guy in my community that he will run 5 miles with the American flag. And every time I pass him on my police car, he salutes me. He is the coolest dude, most patriotic dude I have absolutely ever met. He's even so we ended up friending him on Facebook, most of the police department. And one time my girls were having a car wash to make money, and I put it on Facebook. And like where I lived was about a half hour from where he lived. And he, no shit, showed up at my house, got a car wash for my daughters, paid them probably way too much money from what the car wash they gave them was, and hung out and had a good time. And we talked about that. And every time I'm feeling lazy at work or whatever, I think about what does that dude want in his community?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. That's a perfect, that's a perfect way to look at it. And I also look at it too, Kevin, from this perspective, and maybe you can share a story. Like, it also then the quotas thing has, and I don't know what word it would be, but like the backdoor, like hidden impact. So like again,
unintended consequences, second, third world.
Exactly. Unintended consequences. Like I'll give you an example out here. So in a city not far from me here, the state police just running plates and stopping people or whatever. They ran a plate, and I forget what they stopped the guy for. I think it was like a light was out or something like that, which in Pennsylvania you can stop for. And I think probably in Ohio, if you have a light out, you can stop and say, hey, here's a fix-it ticket or whatever. And they stopped him, and here they ended up finding like crystal meth and crack linked to like the cartel and all sorts of stuff. And it ended up being this like really large, like one of the bigger drug busts in Pennsylvania in like a very long time. And all this was for a light. And I think the cop said he was going to give like a fix-it ticket. And here then it turned into something else. Like, I could see the quotas thing, Kevin, maybe throwing in with the quotas thing to be fair for the public that complains. If it's something like, like here they have a statute here in PA called failure to obey traffic control devices. Like, maybe putting something in place to like give people a break on points, but still giving the fine as far as the quotas dynamic to I guess, that way there's some negotiation there with the public. But like, that's an example, like you had said, Kevin, unintended consequences. Like, I remember when
how much more actual crime is going to go up or be unnoticed because you you took away your quota, and now guys have an incentive not to stop vehicles. Like, that's dangerous. Like, I found so many things off of a headlight out in dumb things where I stopped someone, talk to them. You find, now in Ohio you could have guns. Before when I first started, you couldn't have guns unless you had a CCW. All those things, guys who are drunk, because I stopped a guy with, a headlight out. Right. So I was being proactive.
Uh,
It would suck if actual crime goes up and there's more victims of crime because quotas go away and guys have an incentive and everyone reacts to incentives.
Right.
They now have an incentive to sit around and not stop cars.
Right. And again, I'm going to relate this back to the military, Kevin. And I hate telling basic training stories, but this is something I remember from the military. And for those of you that are watching, hey, if you have something similar to share, please do. But I remember we were going over something combat related, and we had this real crazy drill sergeant, and he was talking about, what's the word? Like a presence patrol in an area, and that helped cut down on things if they knew they were there. And I'm going to relate a lot of the police answers to military stuff. Like, I think of that then. So if the Taliban,
deterrence.
Yeah, exactly. So if the Taliban and Al Qaeda know you're driving through there, and they may think you're looking for somebody, and you're driving through with up armored Humvees and shit that will fuck you up, like they're probably. I mean, you may get the one that's still going to shoot, and blow themselves up, but versus not doing anything and allowing them to gain strategic ground. And then I think of the police dynamic. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but if you just never have police in a certain area, the criminals are going to go, there ain't no police here. I'm going to sell drugs. I'm going to break into houses. I'm going to, that sort of stuff. And that's where.
Do you want to be known as a city that you can't speed through, or do you want to be known as a city that you can break into someone's house and get away with it? Like, do you want to be known as a city that we stop cars, we check people out, we see we do it correctly and legally, or do you want to be known as a city that we just don't care and you can come in and break windows and break into people's houses and hurt people?
Right. Exactly. Because I think of the unintended consequences in this regard. If I'm a criminal and I go, yeah, there is never any cops there, we'll just drive through this specific area to do XYZ because there's never any cops anywhere. But then if I know such and such area Kevin's in, man, them cops are stopping folks. They might pull us over with these figurative drugs that we have in the trunk, or even something is like, I think, Kevin, about like, the Amber Alert kind of stuff. Like, it just, I don't know, you could just a long list of like unintended things that, like, in a good way, stopping people, like, or even the mental health thing. I just watched a guy who stopped a veteran who was considering killing himself, and he actually ended up asking the cop for a hug, basically like appreciated being stopped. Sure. Like, again, there's so many unintended things you could find yourself into.
So stopping people doesn't have to be negative. I stopped a lady a few months ago, and I was the only person she had talked to in probably 6 months. And we sat there, we had a conversation about how she was doing, what she was doing. She had moved to our area because of the Cleveland Clinic and the medical care there. She was a Christian, so we talked about God and Jesus and praying, and we hung out, and she appreciated me stopping her. So not every stop has to be a negative experience. Not every stop is going to be a positive experience. Right. But there's something to stopping someone for a traffic violation and talking to them like a human and seeing how they are doing and what's going on, if there's anything illegal. And if they're not, you wish them well and move them on their way.
And I don't know, Kevin, if you got the picture I sent you about my hometown. I don't know if you want to throw that up there because this relates to my argument.
I don't know if I got that right now.
It's a picture of a lady holding up a sign.
I just got that, so getting that up here is gonna.
So for those of you that may be watching or are watching, so where I'm going at with this is, I think the problem, Kevin, with the quotas thing, and again, you can share your opinion, your senior tenured law enforcement, is the demonization and animosity towards police that the general public have. Because in that picture, and Kevin has it and can see it, in that picture, it's a lady. There was a protest out here with all of these crazy protests about Trump and Elon Musk. And in the photo, she's holding a sign that says, even though we're not talking about ICE, but it relates to law enforcement, ICE is the new Gestapo. Like, to compare the Gestapo or the SS, who executed people in the streets or in their house and linked and proven they tortured people. Like, to then make a sign referencing anything with law enforcement is anything even remotely close to
No, not at all.
that.
If you're gonna call anything in this country Gestapo, Nazi, brown shirt, SS, whatever, go read a history book because you suck and you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
The things those people did to people is terrible and nothing like we do in this country.
Exactly. And I actually had the fortunate pleasure of driving through that by accident. I said to the lady, I said, if you would like, we can go meet at the Holocaust Museum in DC and we'll take the sign with, and let me know if you think ICE or law enforcement is comparable to that. And kind of where I was going, my argument there, Kevin, is I think the folks that are anti-quota are some of those people that, for whatever jaded opinion, in some regards, I think some of them correlate anything with police to that extreme. Like, that's where I think we're gotten so messed up as a society. It's like either the whole way to the ceiling, or it just, there's no like moderation as far as like common sense. And I think the people that have a problem with police doing their job, and I hate to generalize, but I think that comes from people holding signs like that. Like, they're like, that's just a part of society. But
I would say, I mean, that, but yes, also the media, because the media sucks. The media twists things, move things around, and people like that feed off the media instead of gaining their own opinion. And then to gain attention, they take a sign and go outside and hang out with other people like-minded like them and get attention, because that's what they need and lack in their own personal lives.
I completely agree. So I have a question, Kevin, about if unless you wanted to stay on this.
Sure.
So I didn't get a chance to catch the last Anti-Hero, but I seen there was something clipped out, and it looked like it went borderline viral about Tyler talking about like SF like fanboys. Like, what was the context there with that? Do you?
All right, so I listened. It wasn't Anti-Hero. It was counterculture, I believe.
Okay, I think Regan was on there. That guy makes me laugh.
So what did he say? I think actually Tyler Anti-Hero's in like the comments right now. So Tyler, if I misquote you or say this wrong, please tell me. But basically, he's saying the idea was how special forces guys have gotten to a point where they have to outdo each other because they've all rotated podcasts through the same podcast.
Oh, okay.
Right. And now it's like, well, I can't outdo you, so now I have to lie about the crap that I do. So then you get the Tim Kennedys, Rob O'Neill's, Charles kind of get back. But I was like, we're all in such competition for how cool we are that now I have to really exaggerate and even lie about my own story. So counterculture covered that very well. And there, I think it was 2 open mics ago, I believe. Okay.
No, I had just seen that clipped out. And I agree, Tyler, if you're listening, I do agree with you in that regard. Because I think Kevin, you said you're Reserve or National Guard?
National Guard, yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how often. I'm assuming with how long you've been on some active duty bases at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I hate to misspeak because I wasn't a Green Beret, but I just know from my experience as far as the special operations community goes, being in the 160th, I don't know if maybe that comes from like, when those guys are on base. And I tried to get Brent to share a story, even though he swears he never had an experience like this. But like, I can remember, Kevin, watching an SF dude who was, I think, a staff sergeant, tell a major to like, yo, go fuck yourself, like get away from me at the PX. And like, if me and you did that, they would be hell to pay. And like, and like, those guys are such a small community. Are you gonna do something about guys? So I don't know if maybe that dynamic, that's where that comes from. Like, you are so treated as so special while you're in, and then when you get out, you kind of have to feel that like.
Dude, I get there's no excuse if you're lying about a war story.
Right.
And to the level that Tim Kennedy did. Actually, do you want me to clip Anti-Hero from today about Tim?
Go for it.
Hilarious. All right.
Go.
Let me make sure.
And I have my take on something Tim Kennedy's doing, man.
All right.
I couldn't save you from spending your money on the Tim Kennedy book. Yeah. But at least I feel like we saved you on the time that you didn't have to spend listening.
thought about
I
is
guess it's a wash. I suppose.
Anti-Hero doing a book buyback. But
Tyler, where's the sunglasses at, man?
yeah,
I'll give
book
you my Zelle
buyback.
right now.
yeah,
Oh,
police
so
department
good.
gun buybacks to
Yeah.
get guns off the street.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Could you imagine Anti-Hero doing I mean, pause this.
Tyler, I told Brent this. You guys need to find a way. You need to find a way to somehow, and this would be on some epic shit. I don't know if Brent would want to do it. Either somehow find a way to get on Camp McCall and do a fucking anti-hero podcast on there, or Charlie Mike's outside of Bragg and do one there and do a. I know they've done a lot with Tim Kennedy, but that would be epic. I had seen. I don't know if you follow him at all, Kevin. I have this just distinct feeling he's trying to get in the politics realm.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Did you read his book?
no.
All right, so I have to shamefully admit, when it first came out, I was excited, and I read the book, and I'm like, I'm not special forces, so like I didn't know what to believe and not believe, and shamefully, I probably believed a few too many things that I should have believed. But like a good point is like Tim Kenny is a master sergeant that's still in the National Guard, lying about everything he did. Like how do you get away with that? I mean, I'm a master sergeant, and like half the time I'm worried about that I started doing this with you. It's like, why should I be worried about that when Tim Kenny's going out and telling war stories about him committing war crimes? Like, honestly,
Right.
Tim Kennedy,
Well, I guess
want my money back. Where's my money? I want my money back.
Well, I guess my thing's twofold here, Kevin. You know, I don't know how as far as, getting called back as far as the National Guard stuff works. Like, I'm surprised with the stuff being fabricated. He hasn't gotten someone from regular Army big soft to say, hey, like, we need to have a chat.
I don't know, man. I have no idea.
Because he's still in, if I'm correct.
Yeah, he's a master sergeant. He's still in the 19 Special Forces group. He's in the Texas National Guard.
The thing I think that's so cringe about him, and again, I don't like to disparage other veterans, but like kind of like Tyler and Brent I kind of essentially say, like, you got to call a spade. Like, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck.
When you have someone blatantly lying for
Right.
dollars, that's different. It's different
Right.
than someone exaggerating a story,
Right.
or exaggerating a detail.
And I see that with what he's doing here recently on Instagram. Like, I follow him on there because some of the stuff he posts I do find funny. Like, he had, I think, in the last couple days, and this is just my thought, and I could be wrong, but I've noticed since the whole Hegseth thing, his posts with being at the White House have like dramatically gone up. Like,
he's trying to find coattails into politics,
So-
100%. And
so here's my conspiracy. Here's my conspiracy, Kevin. I'm gonna be the first one on the internet to say this.
full send.
I think, and maybe Tyler and Brent, you share your thoughts on this because I was connecting all the dots here. I think with the rumors of them calling for Hegseth to step down, with Tim Kennedy going to try to take pictures with Kash Patel and hanging out, I just really do, and maybe call me crazy, I think that guy is somehow hoping he's going to be like, he's hoping Hegseth gets the boot. And here's Tim Kennedy. Can you imagine the Anti-Hero podcast if Tim Kennedy ended up as the Secretary of Defense? Oh my God, holy shit.
All right, here it is. Counterculture Inc. News. Guys on the ground and Inc. Tyler CC calling it. Tim Kennedy is going to try to
You heard it here first.
Secretary of Defense.
Kevin, I'm not making this up. If you look at his most recent...
He probably is. He's so psychotic, he probably is.
If you look at his most recent posts and you go back to when that Signal thing came out, he has been at the fucking White House like every day.
He's like there every other weekend. 100%.
Right. So then I seen this the other day, and actually there was someone in the comments for something, and I sort of stole this from another person on Instagram. Sorry, I don't know who you are, but I'm taking credit for it now. The person in the comment put, this motherfucker trying to be Secretary of Defense. And I was like, yo, it makes sense. Like,
if
Hegseth,
you read his book and seen like all the podcasts that come out about his book, specifically from Anti-Hero, you go like, this dude is psychotic. He's a narcissist. He's willing to do probably anything to be in the most powerful position. He wanted to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. He wanted to turn his book. I can't get the name now. He wanted to turn his book into a movie, and he wanted to film as an action star in his own book that turned into a movie. 100%.
I'm telling you, bro. Again, you heard it here first, folks, on the internet. Freaking Counterculture News, Kevin Guys on the Ground, Ink Tyler _CC, Tim Kennedy, shoe-in for fucking Secretary
That's
of Defense. I'm telling you, with just think, remember this, Kevin. If you see this going forward, with the second signal thing coming out, that occurrence of Tim Kennedy flights to the White House and hanging out with Kash Patel, like, how the fuck does Kash Patel know who the fuck Tim Kennedy is? Like, they didn't go on raids anywhere together or anything like that. Like, it just, I thought about it when I saw that comment on social media. And then, like, I also think back to too, Kevin, like just the mantra again, my whole time in the military was special operations community. It just, if you would look at Tim Kennedy from afar, like, you would not think that. Like, he would say,
he would 100% shut anti-hero podcast down if he was a Secretary of Defense.
No, Tyler and Brent, whichever one of you that is, no, what we would need to fucking do is all coordinate to get you guys press passes to the fucking White House when they'd have their press briefings, just for you guys to have the book there to ask questions out of the book. That would be like gold, like the most satire-related thing ever. But I'm telling you now, I'm going to say it one more time. You folks on the internet, Instagram, and fucking YouTube heard it here first. When Tim Kennedy somehow ends up with that, when they say, Hegseth, you got to go, and Kennedy's at, his confirmation hearing, hey, like, me and you can sit here and maybe this will just blow up then, because be like, man, the two guys that called it on the internet. But again, it makes sense. Like,
and
why are you
podcast called out and predicted this? Yeah,
right. Why are you guys making? Why are you Tim Kennedy? Why are you making so many? You're nobody, bro. Why are you making so many trips to the White House?
NCO that's still in, could I open a 15-6 on Tim Kennedy? Is that possible?
Right, that's a lot of grenades. The 50 grenades, like, think about, like, did the commander just, like, that's what they need to find out. Tyler and Brent, you guys need to somehow find out if they just wrote off all those grenades, because that's what would really debunk the story. Someone, I'm sure, could get that.
I think they did a good job debunking the mission, at least.
Did Kennedy get, like, given a flipple for 50 grenades? Like, hey, man, like, here's 50 grenades. We're taking this out of your pay. Like, but I don't know, man. I'm telling you, maybe I wonder,
is this, it's like, we're the same rank, so I don't get him call me anything. I mean, we're both match sergeants. Can I, like, since he lied to me and it's essentially stole from me by calling his book nonfiction when it's clearly fiction, can I put a 15-6 for, like, theft and lying and conduct on becoming an NCO? That'd be funny.
Though, Kevin, like, that argument is legitimate. If you're still,
isn't it? Where my money? Tim.
If you're still in, like, but Kevin, can you imagine that again? I'm gonna, like, if I somehow see that on TV, that Trump, like, I'm gonna, like, freak the fuck out. But, like, can you imagine if that would happen, like, him sitting at, like, a confirmation hearing? Because there's a SEAL and I think a Green Beret in Congress, and them, like, reading shit out of his book. Can you imagine that? I would hope they would at least shout out Anti-Hero to give him the credit for, like, the background investigation on that stuff. But, like, man, I wasn't a Green Beret, but, like, serving in SOCOM, I don't know. I just find it not I don't know if you want to say disgusting, but it's just, man, like,
no, it's disgusting. You can say disgusting, 100%. You've worked alongside of dudes, some badass dudes. It's disgusting when someone who's clearly done enough already. Tim Kennedy has done enough real shit that he doesn't have to lie. He's done a lot of bad. Right. He's a UFC fighter. He's a Green Beret. That's all badass. He don't lie anymore.
I don't know. I think I don't know if he, like, still is seeking validation from.
I don't think someone like that. I don't think anything will ever be enough to satisfy him.
I agree. I agree. I agree 100%.
He's the president of the United States. He'd have to be the greatest president the United States ever existed, and that's dangerous in itself.
Right.
I don't
Well,
think anything was satisfying.
well, like back to like the misleading statements thing. Like I watched the thing, and again, it just makes me laugh. He had posted a story. Where was he at? He made sure to let everyone know in the story what section of the wing of the White House he was in. And I
he
laughed.
was actually this came a few years ago. Did you see that? Did you see the Joe Rogan episode where he claimed that someone tried to break into his house?
Oh my gosh!
This was a
No.
few years ago. I guarantee you that did not happen. In a well-prominent neighborhood in Texas, someone did not try and break into Tim Kennedy's
Right, the
house.
guy who posts gun shit all the time.
Right. Who's a Navy SEAL? There's no way someone broke into his house. He 100% used that. That was like the first clue for me that like this guy's probably full of shit. There is, I have to find that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and find that because it was like probably from 2018 around there that he went to Joe Rogan and claimed someone tried to break into his home. And like, there's no one tried to break into your home, Tim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't.
Hey, brother, we are at an hour.
I don't believe that either.
I want to try and keep this to an hour. Just so you know, I'm going to start doing a brief news podcast on Saturdays that are recorded because I cannot find a time besides Tuesday evenings that I can do anything weekly. But let's quick. Let's plug our sponsor, Sender Brand. Get 30% off all their supplements. They do pre-workout. They do brain health, my favorite. They do sleep supplements as well to help me kind of stay on a somewhat regulated schedule. Put the code in GOG for 30% off all of their products. Veteran-owned business as well. Tyler, like whenever I prep these, I have like 7 tabs open and we get to like 2 or 3 things. But I appreciate the fact that we can talk in depth about these topics.
I gotta say real quick, Tyler and Brent, if somehow Tim Kennedy ends up as the sec def, you better fucking shout me and Kevin out. Damn it. Don't steal my fucking conspiracy here. You better
say call it a
conspiracy.
It's not a conspiracy. It's like you can see these things in motion. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it would be a legitimate, you could legitimately look at this and see like, yeah, that's what he's doing. I would. This is more truthful than even the conspiracies.
I agree.
Right.
For sure.
Right, Tyler.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right, Tyler. I love talking on Tuesdays. I look forward to it. Looking forward to next Tuesday.
Yeah, man. Good
send
times.
me articles or pictures. Whatever else got. I feel like we got a lot of our technical issues worked out, but that'd be.
Oh yeah, much better. Way smoother.
For sure. All right, dude. I'll talk to you later.
Later, man.